Mr. Hen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Gensler, in your testimony, I believe you said something along the lines that unregulated swap markets played a central role in our economic crisis. I assume you're mainly alluding to AIG. Is that correct?
Yes, but also I think it helped accelerate the asset bubble in housing, credit default swaps more generally.
Just to remind us all of the record, in March of '09, the head of the OTS, Mr. Polikoff, testified to a question that I asked. Again, in retrospect, it wasn't the lack of authority, it wasn't the lack of resources, it wasn't the lack of expertise. You just flat out made a mistake. Is that a correct assessment? Answer, yes, sir. In 2004, we failed to assess how bad the mortgage economy, the real estate economy, would become in 2008. So at least the regulator in question thought they had the authority and the expertise. I've peeked into the testimony of the panel to follow yours, so to some extent I want to try to foster a bit of a conversation here. We're going to hear from a gentleman, Craig Reiners, with the Miller Coors Company. And quoting from his testimony, quote, "A requirement for end users like Miller Coors to post margin to its counterparties would have a serious impact on our ability to invest in and grow our business. Though end users are not directly subject to the trading requirements, excessive capital requirements imposed on our counterparties aimed at forcing end users onto regulated exchanges, execution platforms, and clearinghouses could significantly increase our cost." Chairman Gensler, a provision that was supposedly aimed at Wall Street may be increasing the cost of a six-pack. I think you just got the attention of the American people. Has your agency considered the pass-through cost concerns in your economic analysis as you develop these new rules?
I read very closely the testimony of Miller Coors. We've met with Miller Coors. We're aware and focused on the cost of a six-pack because we also oversee agricultural markets. And I would say our intention is not to have margin requirements applied to an end user such as Miller Coors. So very directly to his point, we're very focused on his testimony and his concerns.
We'll be monitoring your progress at the local convenience store. Also saw testimony from Mr. Terry Duffy, Executive Chairman of the CME Group. He testified, quote, "Entities such as CME often cannot fully anticipate the meaning of a proposed rule when that proposed rule is reliant on another rule that is not yet in its final form. For example, rules dealing with the definitions of swap, security-based swap, swap dealer, as you well know, Mr. Chairman, the list goes on." Mr. Duffy goes on to say, as such, they must be established before interested parties can meaningfully address other proposed rules. So your commission, I believe, has proposed some rules. Comment periods have closed on other rules, and yet many commentators don't even know, without the proper definition clarity, whether or not certain rules will apply to them. So how can you have a meaningful comment period, Chairman Gensler?
We've indicated, and I've read Mr. Duffy's testimony very closely as well, we've indicated to Mr. Duffy, with whom we're meeting at 2:45 today, that we want all of the CMEs and all of the public's comments. If these rules have been staggered partly because we're humans, we need to just move them out. But if you have comments on earlier proposals where closed periods have happened and they relate to this definitions rule, include them. Send them in. We'll use our discretion. We'll distribute them. We'll get them into the right comment files. Just like this entire hearing, I think we're going to put in our comment file. Everything that you all have to say is important to our process as well.
Well, I think the gentleman makes a good argument. I hope you can find a better way to run a railroad, because I think, again, we're dealing with trillions of dollars, we're dealing with capital, we're dealing with jobs, and I just think it's so critical that we have an effective rulemaking process. I see my time is winding down. One more question for you, Chairman Gensler. I understand that you are advocating the adoption of position limits even for passive investors such as commodity index funds. Is that correct?
Consistent with the Dodd-Frank Act, we've put out a proposal in January, and we look out for the public comments on. So I think it's consistent with what
Does the CFTC have any data to indicate how the proposed position limit rule would affect the operation of these passive funds?
The passive funds, we publish data regularly on passive funds or in index investments in the marketplace, and that's on our website. We've included some of that data in the preamble and the rule, but we look forward to the public comment in the proposed rules on agricultural, metals, and energy position limits.
I see my time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.